9 days to go now until the historic summit between U.S. President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Singapore. U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis is already there for a previously scheduled event, and he's giving every indication, especially when it comes to sanctions, that simply having a summit on the books is not enough.
Especially now, we must remain vigilant, and we will continue to implement all UN Security Council resolutions on North Korea. North Korea will receive relief only when it demonstrates verifiable and irreversible steps to denuclearization.
That question of denuclearization is only one of the policy and logistical details still to be worked out. The Washington Post reports another. Who will pay the North Korean delegation's hotel bill? According to the Post, Kim would like to stay at the posh Fullerton Hotel. The presidential suite there rings up at around $6,000 a night. Singapore may actually be asked to pick up the tab. Let's bring in our Alexandra Field in Seoul. Alexandra, not long to go before the summit. What happens between now and then?
Not long to go and still so much to be worked out, Cyril. We know that on the question of denuclearization, they're far from any kind of agreement. President Trump has said himself that this meeting will be an initial meeting, a get-to-know-you meeting, and he hasn't ruled out the possibility of several additional summits. He's even said that they won't be signing an agreement this time around. But there are a number of established channels of communication. That means that there's a lot of talking that needs to be done between now and that summit date between the U.S. and North Korea. Also, there's a lot of talking that's been going on between North Korea and South Korea, all to facilitate this summit, not just on the policy questions, also on the logistical questions. As far as policy, though, you had the Secretary of Defense Mattis in the region speaking today, saying that it's going to be a bumpy road to the negotiations. He was expressing the fact that the U.S. is standing closely with its allies. He says that he and his counterparts are maintaining a strong defensive front in order to enable a position of strength for the diplomats who have a lot of negotiating to do in front of them. Another big meeting on the agenda before that big summit. The Japanese Prime Minister will travel to Washington, D.C. this week to meet with President Trump. They, of course, are going to be talking about their position as we head into this historic meeting. Cyril?
And what about this little kink that's been thrown into this story by the Washington Post that Kim Jong-un wants his hotel paid for? Do we know who's going to pay for it?
Yeah, fascinating report by the Washington Post. They were citing officials who are familiar with the talks. They say that North Korea is insisting that somebody else pick up the hotel bill, that it's a $6,000 a night suite that Kim Jong-un wants. They had initially reported that the White House and the State Department weren't commenting on the report. They've since updated it, saying that a spokesperson for the State Department says that the U.S. is not open to paying this bill and that they are not asking other countries to foot the bill. That means the question of who makes the payment will still need to be worked out. But they do go on to say that it is likely that the U.S. would have to request a waiver from the United Nations for some of the sanctions related to travel costs for the North Korean delegation and for Kim Jong-un. So the question of who pays the bill still outstanding. But of course, there are a number of other logistical issues that have to be worked out, like where exactly this historic meeting will take place and how Kim Jong-un will get there. You know, for weeks or months now, Cyril, we've been talking about the fact that this summit was likely to be held somewhere not far from North Korea, because we know that Kim Jong-un has this aging fleet of Soviet-era aircraft. There were questions about whether he could fly very far directly, whether he'd have to stop in another country for refueling or borrow someone's plane, potentially embarrassing from a diplomatic perspective for North Korea. So a number of questions still to be worked out with just about 10 days until that big sit down.
Yeah, lots to be worked out, and I didn't realize it was that granular. What plane, what flight route, and who foots the bill on that. You have 9 days to find out who is footing that hotel bill, Alexandra. Alexandra Field reporting live from Seoul, South Korea. Thank you very much.